Okay. Welcome to the Manitou Springs URA meeting, February 4th. We will call the meeting to order at 9:33. Looks like AI is taking minutes for us. Thank you very much. Let's see. So, Ann Nichols. Oh, well, I need to call, don't I need to do the roll call? Yeah. Okay. Ann Nichols, John Maynard, Alan Delwich, Alan Gregory.
Here.
Barb Winter is, I believe, absent. I didn't see anything. Anybody see anything? Okay, I believe Barb Winter is absent, perhaps late. And in the audience, we have Nathan Nasir. Am I reading that right? Hello.
Yeah,
Hi.
good morning, Nate Nassif. Yeah, new to the community.
Nassif. Oh, it's an F on the end. I see Nassif. Very nice. I'm Farley McDonough. I'm the current chair. Welcome. And then in the audience, we also have Pat Sitzman and Electra Johnson. All right. Let's see. So we'll start with the approval of the January 7th minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Oh, my apologies. Public comment? My apologies.
Yeah, I have something I need to bring up. I'm on the board, but it's not germane really to our board business, so I thought appropriate to do it in public comment.
Okay.
I just wanted to clear the air at the last planning commission meeting. Vice Chair Maynard in the public comment section accused me of being biased in my decision on the 123 Manitou Avenue variance request, and said I should have recused myself. And for the record, I want to state that before any of this project came up, concept plan, everything, I consulted with the city attorney, and he said that I did not have a conflict and that it was appropriate for me to continue participating as long as I stepped out whenever there was conversations about the project, which I did, as Nancy did. And I think it was really unfair to say I was biased against the project. For the record, I did not support the original agreement with Paragon, but it had nothing to do with whatever project was going to be there. It was based on my feeling that we were being foolish not to collaborate with city council. I felt that we were being rushed into the project when there are other things we could have, we could have taken our time and been more deliberate and looked at other people who are interested in the project. And had nothing to do with any project. I am a strong advocate for housing. I live very close to the property, and I just want it to be very clear that I am not biased against any project that we do. If my bias is there, it's that I feel I have to be faithful to our zoning code, and I felt like it would be impossible with a good conscience for me to support that variance, and that's why I voted against it. It had nothing to do with bias. Thank you.
I don't believe we have any protocol in place for responding to public comment, but does anybody want to respond?
I guess the only thing I would say is that in general, and it's always the individual that has to decide if they have an appearance of bias and should recuse themselves. But when I'm on a board, like Mineral Springs Foundation had some projects we were doing that came in front of HPC, and I'm on HPC, routinely I recuse myself because there's just an appearance that if a board that you're on is promoting a project in front of another board that you're on, there is a clear appearance that you ought to be biased, I guess. But so I think it's just good protocol, but it's completely up to the individual. Again, it's not anything on every board I've ever been on. If you ask the attorney, for advice, he'll tell you that I'm not here to give you advice about whether you have a conflict of interest. You have to decide that. So that's the only thing I'd say.
Thank you, Anne. I believe, let's see, how do I want to say this? I hear what you're saying. But similar to what Anne is saying, I think that there is a perception of bias. And I think it is up to the individual to make that decision. But I think that perhaps a little more awareness of how it appears would be appreciated. I think it's a little confusing. If I recall, you did vote in favor of the project in the URA, I believe. No? Okay, very good. I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember. Oh, and Barb has entered the meeting. Welcome, Barb. Alan just made a statement that you can listen to in well, I guess you'll have to read it in the minutes, regarding his position on the Planning Commission and an appearance of bias. And I've allowed it to be responded to, I suppose, since we don't really have a protocol. At any rate, I just think that there needs to be some sensitivity around this, and that there are people on the board, myself included, that are uncomfortable. Does anybody else want to comment? Or Alan, did you want to?
I do want to comment.
Thank you.
And my comments were in no way reflective of your vote, which is your vote and your choice to make a vote any way you wish. But my issue primarily was how the alternate was selected by you to sit on the commission, and ignoring the fact that a senior alternate and one who had not most recently sat on the commission was told that you were not welcome. And that was, I believe, your misunderstanding of our protocol and the process we follow. And you know, we even went back and looked at our draft procedures, and we specifically stated that we would rotate alternates. And that is what I did. And to the best of my knowledge, I was picking the one that had most recently been passed in the case. You know, we have this thing, if there's more than one alternate, and they both show up and we only seat one, we take turns. We don't go based on the most senior. And that's always been the process. And it was my determination that that was the appropriate choice. And you know, you did, I watched your words. You said I was biased. And I'm, you know, I think there's lots of cases of perception. You know, if people have stakes in companies that could benefit from development, or people have businesses in the URA, we all have perception. It challenges from time to time in a small community. And, you know, we can just have, you know, exclusionary rules that you know, you can't be on a board if you're on another board. That's not the policy. I felt like I was following the protocol. I felt like I was being fair, and you know, that's, you know. Well, I don't want to argue anymore, but I would like to point out that the previous meeting, the alternate who was seated at the December meeting, I believe it was a repeat of the same person. It wasn't an alternate. And I went back and checked the minutes to determine that. So the other point I'll make is that the Planning Commission doesn't have standard operating procedures. You may have, since you've been there a long time, you may have history in how things are done, but there are no written standard operating procedures that I could find, and I checked that with the city administrator.
Thank you. I'd like to allow Barb and Alan to weigh in if they choose.
Well, I apologize because I just jumped in late on the discussion. So I got kind of the tail end of your remarks, Farley, and I certainly heard John. But I guess we're talking about the issue of trying to speak with one voice in particular, I guess is how I would view some of this discussion, is we don't want to be at cross purposes. And, whether the challenge is sitting on more than one board, I think we should all be speaking with one voice and supporting majority in that regard on some of these matters as it relates to development in our zone.
Thank you. Alan, Gregory?
I would agree with Barb's comments, but other than that, I don't want to state anything else.
Okay, very good. Well, again, I think, I just want to say that you're right. We do all wear many, many hats. That's part of being in a small town. And I think that just, it behooves us to be even more sensitive to the perception. And with that, I'd like to open up public comment to anyone else in the room. Hey, closing public comment? No? Okay. All right, now we will move on to the approval of the January minutes.
Move approval as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
John. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And financial reports.
Yeah, and I would just indicate that Holting has a December bank statement and what we booked in December, but December, because there'll be charges like what we will pay for snow plowing in December that haven't yet been booked, that they'll wait until they get those to close the books. So I do not have December financials, but we will probably next month.
Sorry. All right, then we will move to old business. With regard to the LaFon status letter of support. I did email the board asking for support. And it was overwhelmingly yes to sign the letter. So I did do it in order because there was a time crunch, but we need to, I guess, ratify the letter. Is that correct? So we need a motion to approve that letter of support for the affordable housing project on, I should say, let me back up. Actually, we need to approve the letter of support for the packet that's going to be submitted to the Colorado Housing Authority. The project has a long way to go itself. So the letter was to support completing the file with letters of support. And so I'm looking, are there any questions? Pretty straightforward. Is there a motion to ratify or the motion to, yeah, I think to ratify, right? Motion to ratify the letter of support for Paragon's affordable housing project. Yes,
So
Barb?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Barb motions. Is there a second?
Second.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, board vacancy.
Was there any opposed?
Was there opposed? No, no opposed.
Okay.
What did she just say?
Was there anyone opposing?
No, nobody was opposed.
Okay.
Board vacancy. So last month, we had asked Nancy to investigate whether or not she could be a voting member of the board. And she did text me just a minute ago let's see what she said. Let's see, she spoke with Mayor Graham after the last URA meeting. He's not crazy about me being on the URA. I recommend that you ask the chair to send a letter to council requesting my appointment. So do you want to give me instruction or direction to do so, or do you want to talk more about this?
Well, as we discussed at the last meeting, I think it would be appropriate if Nancy were a voting member. And so I would move to have you communicate with the mayor our support for Nancy Fortune as a voting member of the URA board.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you,
And I
Ann.
will point
Mhm.
out, and I think we discussed this last month, it's been real common for us to have council members on the URA board, and I think it works well. I think it adds some. Thanks, Ellen. I think it does add some kind of continuing coordination between the two. So I think it's a good approach.
My only question to the group is, I think we also commented, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we like to have an odd number of members in voting purposes. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also recommending a second person. So that would. us
Yes,
to-
Pat Sitzman is interested in joining the board, so she'll be speaking in just a minute.
So that would take us to an even number of members, if I'm counting correctly. If that's an issue
I
to
believe you're right.
anyone.
Okay, we can definitely consider that in our decision. Alan? Delwich?
Yeah, I think, my one thought is going forward, if we add more members to the board, it would be nice to have more representation from other wards. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 consistently from Ward 2. And we've got 3 wards. It'd be nice to have someone besides Ann representing the rest of the city. So I think, as we look at adding to the board.
Okay,
I'd comment also that in the past, we've had a banker and a surveyor developer on the board. And I think professional variety is also important. So I would think it would be important to have a business person or a property owner, someone in that line of work as a member of the board in order to make sure we have a odd number of members.
okay. So right now we have a motion and a second to instruct me to deliver a letter to the mayor in support of Nancy becoming a voting member of the board. Can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got, yeah, you got, okay. All right, that motion carries. We'll be talking to chat. All right, and let's introduce Pat Sitzman. I think some of you or most of you might already know Pat. You want to come up and join us? Have a seat right over here with Ann. Yeah, and I did ask Patsy to come up and just give us a quick introduction and what she believes she can bring to the board and how she can support our mission.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Pat Sitzman. Been here. We all got the little short letter I sent to the board. So that should put it in 2
Yeah.
paragraphs pretty easily.
You need to be real close to the speaker so people can hear online.
Okay. Is that better, Alan? All right. I think I know most of you. I don't know Mr. Gregory. But it's funny that John mentioned that he's this person. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last 40 years, maybe 45. I've been retired for 8, and I've served on several boards and commissions here in Manitou. the original match implementation, Crane for a long time with Farley. What are my skills? I guess you all want to know that. I am a reader. I am pretty good at reading contracts, compliance, risk management, that sort of thing. It was one of my positions at Colorado Springs Utilities, by the way. And longtime credit union experience as manager and corporate banking that Barb probably knows a little bit about. So that's what I do. I'm curious for two reasons for this board. One, I am in Ward 3. I've been a property owner. I don't own a business yet at this time, but I think I bring something here because I love Manitou. It's as simple as that. I love my neighborhood, and I am seeking to add and contribute. That's it. It's as simple. This is not complicated stuff. Questions, comments? No?
Just curious what your business was. said you
My
had
original business,
Mhm.
I was a stockbroker for years and years and years in the 80s and filed business under that. Yes, yes. It was a very heady time, John.
Also curious why now? We've had vacancies for a couple of years. Just
Well, it's a good question. My last little volunteer pieces here, not including crane and match and that kind of thing. I was working with some senior women in Manitou as sort of their buddy, taking them to doctors and talking to them about, putting on lipstick and that kind of thing. Purely volunteer position. And unfortunately, both of them passed away. So now I have time. That's why now, John.
What did you do for Colorado Springs Utilities?
Um, some of you know the story of Colorado Springs Utilities. There was a major embezzlement, and I had retired. I've retired now 3 times. People keep finding things for me to do. And I was recruited, if you will, drafted to kind of come in and clean up the process mess in revenue. So I was in charge of the money. It's not significantly different once the process is set up than credit unions or banking or any of that kind of thing. But there were a lot of pieces that had to be shored up. Secondarily, after I finished that part of the project, I instituted same-day deposits, electronic filing, and we worked on a lot of budget billing pieces, which helped people budget. If you're not on budget billing, I strongly recommend it. But we did that, and in the interim, we reduced the amount of mail. Mail was running about 12 to 15,000 pieces a day. We reduced it to about 1,500 pieces a day and created no money sitting in vaults and things. Everything directly to Chase and saved in the neighborhood of 250,000 every 6 or 7 weeks. That's what I did. It was pretty fun. Actually, it was pretty fun. Anything else? Anybody want to know anything? No? Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pat. So I believe we talked about this a little bit. The mayor does appoint any new board members.
Yes.
So the next step would be to make that request. I believe you can submit it straight to the mayor, right? How does that work? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So just submit your request to the mayor and we'll leave it up to him.
John's a pretty nice guy. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a nice time today.
Yeah.
Interesting projects you've got going.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on board vacancies? All right, very good. We'll move on then. I actually never got an executive director report. But we will have one next month. It'll be the best. No, I'm kidding. Just teasing. Let's see. On to new business, the executive director contract. So Anne did inform me that Jim sent all of that out, so you all have had time to review that. Electra and I met, gosh, it's probably been a month now, I guess. And there were very few changes that we suggested, mostly around the deliverables. The contract itself is the change in the hourly and the pronouns, but the responsibilities, we did work on those a little bit. So I hope that you all have some feedback on that. Anybody? Need a minute? Okay,
The contract looks good to me and I would move approval.
thank you. We have a motion on the table. John Maynard, is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second Alan Gregory.
And that's
We'll
good.
give it
Take
to you, Alan. And is there any further discussion?
Between the first and second mailings, what specifically did you change?
Between the first and second mailing. Oh, I believe David had not looked at the responsibilities on the second page
Okay,
in the first one, I believe. I don't want to try and pull it up right now. Let me see.
because you sent out a revision.
Yeah. Here it is. David said he spotted a few differences in the duties between the contract and the job description.
Oh,
So he
okay.
updated Exhibit A, which
Okay.
is the duties. I don't think he did that in the first edit.
Okay.
You see that, Barb?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
And all that's copacetic with Electra?
She has approved it, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. So we have a motion by John and a second by Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. All right, we have a new executive director. Welcome.
Welcome and congratulations.
Mhm.
Thanks, Electra, for joining us.
Yes, please join us. Come on up. Miss Audrey. Oh, good. Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see. So the contract then we'll just get it signed
Right.
and then where is paperwork going? Jim's got all the paperwork in Texas or something,
He
right?
sent it to
He sent
Electra.
He sent me a jump drive that I.
Okay, good.
He
Okay,
sent me a jump drive that I started downloading this morning because I got it last night,
fantastic.
but it was gonna take 6 hours. So
Yeah.
I downloaded it today.
Okay,
So,
good. I just
yeah,
wasn't
I'll get it-
sure
I'll get
like
it organized.
where's everything going? So fantastic. Well, welcome.
And I'll put it on I don't know what your protocol is for that, but I can put it on a shared drive, Dropbox or something that people can have access to if that's how it works. I don't know how.
We're going to figure that out.
Okay.
So in Electra and I have a standing meeting every
Yes.
month on I want to say the third Tuesday of the
I
month.
believe so.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So we'll be meeting at Adams. Anybody's welcome to join us. We'll be building the agenda that way, going over whatever's happening. So that we can, and we'll be coordinating those kinds of things.
Yeah, only one other person could join you.
Oh, that's
We'll
right.
have to post. it
Sorry,
at the
tell
joint
me if you're
meeting.
coming.
I'd also like to get everybody's contact phone numbers and emails and whatnot. too.
Thank you.
That would be wonderful. Just so I can reach out. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Yeah, I am taking notes, even though AI is also taking notes.
I know. I know. Okay, very good. So, let's see, on to accounting letter of engagement.
Right, and this is our typical annual letter from Holting and Company. And I assume they usually raise their rates. It looks like it's $500 a month. I think last year was probably $450 or something, but They do a good job, so I would recommend we approve their letter of engagement for 2025.
All right, we have a motion by Ann. Is there a second? Alan Delwich seconds. Is there any further discussion or any questions? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Motion carries. And we move on. Okay, Transportation Mobility Center pedestrian bridge. Roy and Andrew. Come on up. The hot seat's over here.
Good morning. I'm Roy Cheney, the Deputy City Administrator and Public Service Director.
Andrew Moran, City Engineer, Project Manager.
So today we're here to discuss maybe collaboration on a ped bridge at the Dillon. I know or heard that URA was considering a pedestrian bridge at the Arches, maybe on the east end of town. And as we were doing the Dillon project and wanted to have a mobility bridge, we were looking at maybe we can collaborate on that one bridge versus having two bridges, you know. So, and the idea, of course, if they park at the Dillon, they can get to the Fields Park, get to the Creek Walk Trail. Also with the Black Canyon open space, that access becomes more available. So that's really the question today. And I reached out to Jim to see if there would be interest in us, you know, just bringing this up. We don't have all the details yet, but we do have some idea on costs. And a little diagram, which we don't have on the screen. So I apologize for those on Zoom. But just want to see if there's any interest. And if there is, then, you know, we can look at how we move forward in this. So I don't know if you want Andrew to talk about costs first and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, like Roy mentioned, I did bring a diagram for kind of our proposed connection from the Dillon Mobility Hub to the Creek Walk Trail. I can pass that around just for a visual. Like you mentioned, if we could collaborate, it would definitely help each other both on the cost. On the low end, Matrix has proposed it would cost $835,640. And on the high end, $1,207,035. Ped bridges are not cheap with the abutments, the bridge itself and everything. So if there'd be any way to collaborate, it would be a benefit to the URA as well as us doing the mobility hub at the Dillon.
And I would just add that, and then we talk about ped bridge, but really it would be more of a mobility bridge or a multimodal type bridge. It would be wider so that bikes and other types of mobility can go, not cars though. So, and I don't know what bridge URA was thinking at the Arches. So price, that includes a wider bridge. And I believe it's 10
feet wide.
10 feet.
Correct.
Oh, thank you for passing that around. So yes, we did have a pedestrian bridge planned and budgeted several years ago. Planned. We didn't have it budgeted at all. Maybe not. Maybe we're still in the planning stages. And it was, we had the location was behind, not quite the Park Row, a little bit east of the Park Row. That was the intention. I don't know, Anne, would you like to speak to the finances of this particular issue?
Sure. The challenge for us, of course, as I think you know, is council a couple years ago decided to stop giving any sales tax TIF to us. And so our only source of funds at the moment is the property tax TIF, which I think last year was about $185,000. A chunk of that, whatever Holiday Inn Express pays in property taxes, which has been in the 80,000 range, goes back to them under our development agreement with them. So we actually, without additional transfers from the general fund, from the city of sales tax TIF, we are really constrained in terms of funding. And I think we're hopeful we'll be able to make it to the end of our life with their existing funding, but don't see really a big prospect for being able to fund. And that's way more expensive than I expected it would be. I think we were looking at like 250,000 or something, but that's our challenge, is that if we were to provide any significant funding for the bridge, I think it jeopardizes our ability in our remaining, 6 years to do much of anything. It's a good project, I think. I mean, it's certainly one, if we had the funds, we would support. But since we lost our sales tax TIF, our ability to help with infrastructure type projects has pretty much vanished.
What was our burn rate last year? Like, we're still sitting around 900,000 or 800,000. What is?
Probably in the high sevens, but again, since I don't have December financials and I neglected to print out our bank statements, it probably is in the low 800,000. And we are keeping kind of constant with our O&M expenses. So we're not really drawing down our fund balance a lot. But again, I think even if we wanted to, it would be a pretty modest contribution that we'd be able to make. And we can certainly discuss that. And I think once we get December financials, we'd be in a better position to discuss that knowledgeably.
Can I ask, what is that the 200,000 possibly? Modest
I
contribution?
mean, I think we could certainly discuss something in that range.
Okay, because I think anything helps, obviously, with the price like that. And
Right.
to explain a little bit of the price, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, or if there's things that you want to add. We are talking about a mobility bridge, so it's bigger. Also, the area of the cross is challenging because of where it's at and the retaining wall and things we got to put in that area to protect the environment there and everything else. So that's the cost plays into that, right?
Most definitely, the wider bridge, the length, 120 feet and location, abutments and everything. It's a little bigger than what you would probably expect since it is a mobility bridge.
Okay, just checking what that would mean, because everything could help at that kind of price range, and maybe it's more at the 800,000 range and not the 1 million. So that could help a lot. But all right, thank you.
I have some questions. Did Matrix look at other locations? Because there is a utility easement, I think it's gas, that's on the west side of the property, and that's basically at grade, I assume. And my eyeballing it, that would be an alternate location, but I don't know what the engineering constraints might be.
Yeah, that's a great question. Andrew, you want
We initially looked at that location. I'd have to get the fine details from Matrix as far as why they changed the location, because that was my original thought when I met with them, was where the utility easement was, closer to the highway. I can get more details on why they changed it to the other location, but they thought it would work more cost effective and be a better location for our Dillon mobility hub.
Yeah, so before Andrew got here, I actually was part of that initial assessment of looking at that area. And my understanding was because of the floodplain. And so it was going to be very expensive to put it down into that area and trying to get a bridge across. So the other side is actually at a higher level and was going to be a cheaper alternative at the end of the day. So I believe it was all due to that. But that was our first choice. And I agree with you 100%. The grade there looked good. It's like, boy, it'd be nice if we can just run it down there and run the bridge across. It looked like a natural place, but it ended up being a real challenge to do it there.
Yeah, the floodplain plays a huge role in a lot of these decisions.
Well,
So
Roy, this is Barb Winter.
Go ahead.
This sounds kind of foolish, but I would just say, if you or Denise wanted to feel, or the city wanted to feel like we were partnering in this, then I think that I would look for support with city council to reinstitute some of our sales tax. Otherwise, I think it's a city project.
Okay, thank you for that input.
Alan.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that. I think I keep coming back to our funds are taxpayer funds. And we're here, our mission is to augment and enhance the URA area. And I think this project is beneficial to the URA. And the money we have in our checking account now, in our bank account, came from city taxpayers. And, you know, sometimes cooperation can start in other places. And I think, you know, maybe we could, you know, our cooperation could send a message too. I don't think it all has to be until you give us a penny, we're not going to give you a penny or not even a tenth of a cent. I think that's self-defeating.
And I would again say we could look at it for sure. I think our primary objective as a URA is to enhance redevelopment of the commercial properties within the URA. And we're an opportunity to exist. And we haven't, as you know, through our long history, they have been few and far between. They just don't present themselves. So I think we have always hoped that in our remaining 6 years, there would be an opportunity to actually redevelop one of the commercial properties. There may not be, and the money we have remaining may not even be sufficient to entertain that. So I think it's something the board should discuss. Again, once we get financials for December, so we can see where we are at year end, I think that would be a good time to have that discussion.
I have some more comments. First of all, I am a big supporter of having a pedestrian connection in that location, pedestrian bike connection. I question the 10-foot wide if that's necessary. And I know that bridges are basically costed by square foot. So you knock off a few square feet and it brings the cost down considerably. I'm having trouble understanding how the pedestrian bridge would benefit redevelopment of existing properties in the URA. And so that's my problem with this. And that's not to say I wouldn't support some level of funding, but I would like to see our finances go to redevelopment or new development within the URA to essentially increase the tax base of the city forever. And I don't see the bridge doing that. But that's not to say I don't think that that's a good location for the bridge, because I do think it is a good location for the bridge. If you look at the avenue, there's the Adams Crossing Bridge, there's Becker's Lane, and then the next one's Shriver Park. And to get there on the north side of the road, you can't do it safely under the current underpass situation. So those are my comments relative to the bridge, but I have a lot of questions about the site planning of the Dillon, and I've been trying to get plans, as you probably know. I emailed the past project manager, who I guess is left now. Vanessa was her name, and I didn't get a response from the questions that I had. So I'm just curious about the design. Things like, is there still an 18-foot wall against the creek? And is that appropriate? Some of those kind of questions, how drainage is going to be handled, whether pervious pavement is going to be installed. As you probably know, I met with Ethan Schaefer back when he was employed with the city. I gave him some diagrams and photographs of pervious pavement, and he was going to look into grants for such. And then he left the city, so I guess that ball got dropped. Anyhow, those types of design issues I'm interested in. As probably the board members know, I walk the district every month, and you know, I walk this property every month. How are you going to handle the grade change where the trees are located on the? And should the trees be removed because it would be more efficient to do so? I've suggested that to Denise. And, those kind of detailed questions that are not being answered yet, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so we're still early in the design concept, and so some of that hasn't been determined, but we did bring it to council, I believe now the second time, talking about the project itself and some of the questions you're asking. When it comes to the width, basically the Creek Walk Trail talks about the 10-foot wide, and that's kind of like a standard. We do go down to 8 foot, and we have done that on MAPS project, maybe even a 6 foot, but that's still not recommended for a mobility pathway, because if you have folks on it and a bike, you want to make sure there's plenty of room for safety. So 10 foot is kind of the standard for those, and that's why we're looking at the 10-foot crossing. Could it go to 9 foot or 8 foot? I mean, anything's possible, and we've done what we had to do to make it work. When it comes to the wall and the other things, and we're just not quite there yet. There's a lot of great questions. The pavement we're looking at, that's been discussed. Keeping it gravel has been discussed. That has its own problems and compaction, and so it may not be a solution as well. So what's that? Correct. Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. So there's still a lot of questions that are being worked out at this point, and we're going to be, going back to council again with after the last discussions and what they would like to see and hear about the ideas, so we can keep moving forward. But I will give you my card with my email, and if you want to reach out to me, then I will make sure that we have a chat about things. Okay.
Can I
Well,
also get that?
You bet.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. And I don't think you got a lot of direction out of that last council discussion. Certainly a lot less than I would want if I were you in your shoes. Get a gravel lab
Yes,
in, and I don't care what else happens, is what
Yes.
I heard.
We get everything we can from these meetings, and then we go back and we discuss again. So we'll work with what we have, and they definitely everyone's trying their best to give the best product out there. So we'll continue that
Well,
process.
While I'm thinking about it, I'll just throw this out. One thing that the mobility hub could do for business owners, and I'll just give you an example. The Days Inn has a big parking lot that's rarely used, in my opinion. They could put a restaurant in there and have parking occur next door at the Dillon property if there were some kind of a cooperative arrangement, and that would benefit everybody. It would benefit the parking enterprise. It would benefit the community by having another commercial property in play, and it would benefit that property owner potentially. And I have no idea if they're even interested in that, but it's just one idea of how this particular property could benefit the entire city and the URA in particular.
Sure. Thank you for that input. Appreciate it.
Alan?
Yeah, I'd say, I almost feel like I live in the district. I walk it way more than once a month. I think I walk in the area daily. And I really feel like one of the things that would really enhance the URA would be to have more foot traffic. And this would be a catalyst. When you're going along the trail, the notion of walking on Becker's isn't as attractive as going across the creek. I think, and this could stimulate economic development. It's not just giving money to properties for roofs or doing a major redevelopment of a project. This is part of what we should be doing. And I think it's great. I think it's great that the city's picked up the ball and is doing this. And I think it would be a real improvement for the neighborhood that I live in every day.
Electra?
Yeah, just two things that come to mind. One, the porosity of compacted gravel as well. If it's a mobility hub, it makes it, it's equal to concrete unless you're using permeable pavement. That's one piece. So just leaving it gravel would actually make it less mobile, and it would be equal to the drainage with concrete. And then the second piece is there are many, many precedents of mobility hubs that have even narrow small shops, things like that for, you know, or art studios or something like that, that add pedestrian traffic too. So if you keep it as an empty vacant space, right now that corner is not necessarily a super safe place to walk. I know because my son walks down there from our house. And there's not really a good place to walk that down to the park, which is in the URA. But if you designed it appropriately, it could become something synergistically. If you don't, it won't. So yes, to what Alan said, it could improve pedestrian access and safety if it's designed correctly. So I hope that will be considered.
Yeah, thank you. And that's, you know, we're hoping to, you know, instead of just be a parking lot. Number one, I totally agree with you. The idea of gravel and keeping it the dirt is not going to be something we can maintain there. And it's might as well put a concrete pad in. And that's not really what was not known when it was brought up. So as we researched it and what are the chances of this work and how we would have to maintain it, it's not feasible and would not would be a problem with water runoff and things like that. So that idea from our perspective is not a good approach. Now it could be temporarily with some gravel until we do what we got to do, but that should be temporary, maybe for the year. And then we need to find and put in the proper drainage, permeable pavement and that's been looked at already and pricing out as well, the cost of that. We're also looking at that center area where the trees are. You know, trees are important. We want to keep them in play in that area and protect them. So that center portion is looking at, and what council would like to see is, you know, kind of a rest area, a quiet space while they're waiting and they get back, you know, from the incline, let's say, or wherever they're, you know, coming from. They have a chance to kind of wait there, whether they're waiting for the shuttle and in a nice peaceful area. So they're looking at how they make it just a little more enjoyable for being a parking lot, because that's, you know, or a mobility hub. So that's ideas there. And then on the creek side, you know, how do we incorporate ideas there too of even picnic benches and things? And then in the whole area being a mobility hub of bicycle access and bike ride and things like that people can use instead of their cars once they park there. So we are trying to look at that. At the end, the idea is a mobility hub to increase some parking capacity and also introduce other mobility devices that can be used besides cars and get them off the roadway. So that's the idea there, and trying to think that it's also going to just provide maybe a little peaceful place while you're waiting for those, you know, vehicles and things and buses. And so that's the idea. But thanks for all that input. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other piece is if you don't add public space in, I mean, we just, Bustang just stopped using the park and ride downtown. So if you don't have public space that is appropriate for people, it doesn't make it safer.
Yes.
So that design is incredibly important.
You bet. And I should mention, they're looking at food truck locations, possibly things like that. So that's still, again, the concept is still being developed on everything that needs to be at that site. And so we'll keep doing that. And it's good to have this input. I'm glad we came to this meeting. Some good information. Thank you.
Okay, so we want to maybe make this an agenda item after we get our December financials, and the board can have another discussion. Does that work for you?
Sounds great. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Okay. All right, Audrey Gray. Come on up. I'll just read out the cards. Leaving the fun stuff for last. Almost last. To push that little button.
Thing. Hello, everyone. Yeah, how do we do this? I have a little presentation. Ooh.
You have a, if you log on, you're on the Zoom, right?
I am not.
So if you log on to the, if you log on to the Zoom, you can become a presenter.
Isn't there share right there on the
Yeah, right there.
left? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe.
And then maximize.
Can you click the
I don't
link?
know how to use it down
Green
at all.
thing, I think. The green bar up there. I think so.
Now can you click the link? It says control plus click to follow link. Go back to the link. And then look,
Highlight
it
it.
says control plus click to follow link. Does it work? Does it work?
Just control click, yeah. What? No, just push control and.
Oh, did it
click.
just?
And click.
Did you? And it didn't work?
Okay, well, I can still do this presentation. It just doesn't have pretty pictures.
Oh, I bet we can highlight it.
We need something.
We need pictures. yeah.
Something fun.
Let's see if the lecture. Yeah.
Can we copy the link and open a browser?
Yeah.
Control C. Just control C. And that'll copy it. Yeah.
I'm getting keep my thumb around. Control V. That's what I think you do on the map. Right here, this.
See how it should be done here.
Don't know how to use
Oh, look.
It's just like that.
it. Okay, what did you do? Okay. Okay, sorry, Farley. That was not any better than. at figuring it out.
Yeah, but we need to share the screen for the Zoom. Oh my gosh, that's so fancy. Thanks. Can you all see it at home?
Yeah, nice.
Great. No, this is looking great.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think my clicker's gonna work. All right, so as you all know, in 2024, we, along with PARAB and the city and funding from the URA, PARAB, and in-kind support from the city and Crane, placed 7 art pieces in Fields Park by local artists. The pieces have been very popular and we regularly hear requests for more art. Oh, thank you. So in 2025, we would like to put art on the backs of 5 of the signs that are already in Fields Park because they were placed so that we could, with less financial burden, easily put more art in Fields Park. And then we'd also like to put some along the creek walk by the baseball field now that that fence has been taken down. So we're asking the URA if you would be willing to donate to that cause. We're also looking for a grant to put more art between Fields Park and the Chamber along the Creek Walk Trail. So we have 2 options that we could do. If we put new original artworks on the back of each sign at Fields Park and installed 3 new signs over by the baseball fields, all with new artists, it would cost us about $5,075. We could also just copy the images that are already there so that the same artwork's on the front and the back of each sign and put 5 signs over closer to the baseball fields. The difference would be about $400, and it would be like, do we want 12 artists represented or do we want to have 20 different individual art? So either of those would be great for Crane because that's our mission, is to support local artists. And we'd love it if you all would consider it.
Okay, let's open it up.
Audrey, have you had any vandalism?
The vandalism that we have had is that people have tagged the backs of the signs. So no one's put anything on the front. We did have one sign that looked like someone had run into it, but we were able to flex it back. We don't know whether someone deliberately ran into it or like drove their bike into it.
Did Chris do some reinforcement on that one? What?
He's going to when we
Okay.
put the back on it. Yeah.
So I've walked a couple times by, first of all, I really like the artwork and the way the signs came out. I don't see any evidence of tagging or even covering up tagging. So either it didn't happen or you did a really good job.
Yeah, we've also coated all of the images with an anti-graffiti coat. So if someone were to come and spray paint it, we think it would come off pretty readily.
Okay. Well, I, for one, like the idea of having art on the other side. And I also like the idea of having art in the ball fields area. I'd go a step further, and if you got really ambitious and did some artwork along the avenue, I think that would also be nice along the streetscape, because we have a lack of ability to landscape there just because of right-of-way availability. And we had considered wrapping the utility boxes at one point in time, which is fairly expensive. And frankly, I'd prefer the artwork. So future projects, maybe.
Yeah, I think they've turned out lovely. And I think it's your group's decision which route you kind of go, other than if you were seeking input. And, I think your cost factor is comparable. So I would certainly support that we would support you in some regard on the project.
Alan?
Yeah, with the two options, what's the difference in number of new signs that would?
So if we use the artwork that's already there, we could afford to put 5 new signs up. And if we do all new artists, then we could afford to put 3 new signs up east of Becker's.
So the second choice would have fewer signs. And I guess, Mike, I like the artwork, but I'm concerned about having too many signs along the path. If it would get to feeling cluttered, that's my only reserve. Rather than cost, it's just, how many signs do we want and where do we want them? And maybe along the avenue, it's a different factor, but in the park itself, I'm cautious.
Alan, Gregory, any comments?
Well, it's a little awkward for me to comment, but I also have seen these and I really, really like them. I'm not sure it's our place to say or my place to say anything, but I think getting greater artist inclusion would be beneficial to the community.
Thank you. Anne?
And I could support either one, really. I don't have a strong feeling between.
Yeah, I mean, it's a $400 difference, basically. I do like the idea of representing 20 artists as opposed to 12. And I think that if we only do 3 signs behind the ball fields, because we're doing additional artists on the existing signs, I think that this is something that we could continue to do in 2026 if we want to do 3 more signs down towards the arch. I mean, I think that there's a lot of, we can just keep growing it as long as the community likes it. And I get nothing but fantastic response about this project. People just love it.
Yeah, and Crane would like more artist representation too, because what this means is that more money is going to the artists if we do it that way.
Okay.
So it's not clear to me how much money you're asking for.
We're asking for about 5,000.
Can you, Alan, can you just drag the faces down
So
you can
it's
see that?
5,075 is that
There you go.
that hidden
Okay.
hidden number.
So the 5,075 would be additional new artists on the back of the existing art signs, plus 3 signs in fields,
Front
I
and
mean,
back.
ball fields, front and back. The 4,670 is the same existing artist, just the same image on the back side of the existing signs, but we would get 5 new artists in behind the ball fields. Does that make sense? Okay, what have you?
So who bore the cost of these initial signs?
So last year, Parib put in $3,000. The URA, I think, put 1225 and Ent paid 500. In addition, the city worked with us to install the signs and provided almost all of the concrete, and Crane provided all the admin.
So you all don't have a budget.
No, because Harib's funds are very limited where they can use them, and they do not have funding for us for it this year.
So, and Barb, just so, I don't, maybe you weren't there, but so Parib was able to do the install in fields, but they could not do any install behind the ball fields because that's OSAC's territory. But I guess
Okay.
OSAC they chose not to contribute to the project.
Yeah.
Which is where the URA came in with that ask.
Yeah, so this year we're asking if the URA would fund these, and then we're asking another grant to put between fields and the chamber.
Thank you.
What do you think?
So I would move we fund $5,075 to Crane for this project.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? No. Barb? Alan? All right.
Nope, go for it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Motion carries.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
y'all. We're really excited.
The community loves them. They really do.
We get so much,
Yeah.
so much comment.
Mhm. All right. Okay. Moving on. I believe we do not have a city liaison report either today. Is there any other business?
I just had a question since we're on the subject of art, and I noticed we have Nathan on the call. Is he representing any entities? Nathan?
No, I serve, I'm recently new to Manitou and just trying to learn as much as I can. I do have a seat on the Housing Advisory Board as an alternate with Allison. Thank you, though, for asking.
I just noticed your background. I didn't know if you were associated with the new therapy facility that's popping up on the avenue.
No, Barb.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because my question, Farley, is we had the discussion and we funded that new therapy building for refacing or resurfacing. And I think a question or a comment came up if we could go to some sources and perhaps reestablish some artwork on that west side of that building.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know where the best place is to place that idea or inquiry or germinate the idea for that in some way, if it would fit into some of this concept, perhaps.
Yes, actually, I did take that back to Crane and it is germinating.
Okay, so that was a good,
Figure out-
so germination was a good word, but I have heard comments from people that they missed the artwork that was on that building.
Yes, I thought that was interesting too. And I don't know that we've had much success with Park Row right now. I mean, Crane for that location. So, but I know Audrey she's trying to figure out, I mean, she'll figure it out. She wants to put something back on that building as well.
Okay,
So I
great.
think it'll happen.
I just want us
I
to,
would be back here to ask for it, but it'll happen.
yeah, I would just like us to keep kind of track of that because I think that's a lovely backdrop
Yes.
in our zone.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business? Okay. I have something I want to talk about, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate. I'll just wait. All right, so hearing no other business, we will call the meeting adjourned at 10:49. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Can I get y'all's contact? It would be fantastic just to have everybody's.
Do you want us to just email you stuff?
Yeah, or you could write it down and I could just make a sheet. I'd love to get everybody's. Do you have phone numbers and just so I have it? Sorry, my notes, I have a million notes, notebooks of notes.
Yeah, I just sound terrible.
Thank you. I'd love to walk the district with you as well. Yeah, I'd love to.
I'm gonna get a phone.
Okay, yeah, I want to walk it with everybody. I just would like to see people's ideas.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Yeah, there's some bad.
Thank you.
stuff,
So, and your email too. Oh, your email's on there. Oh, just, I've just put it on there. Make it easy. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Email everybody.
Thank you. No idea about, here we go. Yeah.
I'm gonna hand you a card as well. Can I get a picture of you?
Yeah.
I help with basically just